Proszę Państwa, proponuję, abyśmy rozpoczęli drugi panel akademicki wystąpieniem tematycznym, które zaprezentuje nam pani Jaana Puukka, założyciel oraz prezes zarządu firmy Innovation and Gauge oraz ekspert w Komisji Europejskiej. Przedstawi wystąpienie w języku angielskim. I invite you, Mr. Puukka, to present your lecture.
Did I have this? Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be back in Wrocław. I'm very grateful for the ministry and also for the University of Technology. This is now, I think, my fourth. Where is the presentation? No. It's now my fourth time in Wrocław. The last time was in 2013, in February, when I came to present the results of the OECD study, a review of higher education in regional and city development here. What we saw was that this is a place of great potential, great people, huge innovation potential. We also saw that the then new higher education law was a move towards the right direction, but we felt it was not enough, so we encouraged the ministry to look into it. And I personally am very happy to see that the ministry has taken the steps now. Well, first of all, I would like to say that the relationship between research and innovation is very complex. But still, the public investments in research and development is a key feature of any national innovation system. And what is important is that 2/3 of basic research is carried out in universities and also research organizations. The frontier research, the curiosity-driven research is and continues to be important because it pushes the knowledge frontiers and it creates spillovers which are greater than applied research. Or if any of the technological people would show me how to use it. No. Which one? All right. So we'll just try to talk through certain issues here. There is an innovation imperative, and it's quite visible in the policy framework in Europe and also elsewhere. What we also see is that there is a concentration of research excellence, innovation and commercialization. So really we need to see what can other actors, other countries and universities do, other than those who belong to the 4 countries which lead the scene and the 22 or 30 universities which lead the innovation scene internationally. I will present 2 different types of models of entrepreneurial innovative universities. This will not be Oxford, Cambridge, MIT, or Stanford, because I know that you have studied these models very, very well. Instead, I will talk about Imperial College and Aalto University. That's because I was specifically asked to highlight something of my home country, Finland. I will also look into some ideas on how entrepreneurial and innovative universities can be built. And I will base these lessons basically on the OECD reviews of higher education and regional and city development, but also on the more recent study by MIT, which they worked for Skolkovo University. And finally, I will also share some ideas about the metrics, because the current metrics are not very useful for measuring innovation or innovation capacity in universities. How is the translation, by the way? Are you okay with English? Should I speak slowly? Okay. So there is a huge policy move to put universities in the center of innovation. Yeah, it just doesn't follow my orders. Horizon 2020, the Grand Challenges, Innovation Union, they all point to that direction. There's also a smart specialization strategy, which defines the role for higher education institutions in terms of a partnership with academia and government. There is also Europe 2020 and the new agenda for higher education modernization. The renewed agenda will be coming out in next year, the second quarter, and there will be 3 different pillars, and 2 of them will look into these issues that we are looking at here, regional innovation and education and research linkages. And then finally, there is this great mover, which is moving higher education institutions and also governments elsewhere. Everywhere here, Finland, Poland, everywhere in the world, rankings. I could speak a lot about the rankings and what it means to the development of higher education institutions. The measures are quite narrow. Universities do much more than what is actually measured here. But they are there, they exist, and they also give some type of a measure of the innovation capacity of the countries and institutions. What is perhaps also interesting to you is that World Bank is this year running a pilot in 6 countries of a Saber system in higher education, and that will also look into the research for the first time. And then there is a new ranking system for entrepreneurial and engaged higher education institutions. 12 universities have been selected into this set. I will go through this very quickly, but these are just some pointers for science and innovation systems internationally. These are based on OECD work. So governments, as we have seen everywhere, in Poland too, are under pressure to show socio-economic returns on public investments in higher education and research. So there is a push for policies for excellence, open access, and also impact. What is important in all countries is that there is sustainable funding for research. And this needs to be embedded in the core funding, but also there needs to be substantial project-based funding in order to ensure that the governments can actually steer the publicly funded research. Researchers are key to all action here. Research careers must be attractive, and the training of future researchers has to meet the needs of the new multidisciplinary, data-driven, and collaborative research. Scientific infrastructure takes a lot of investment, and the management and governance structures need to be improved. And open science is going to revolutionize everything. Governments in some countries are already mandating open access to publicly funded research. Knowledge diffusion and innovation. So knowledge production is not only enough, we will need knowledge diffusion. And finally, the skills, talent, diversity, and mobility. We have lots of evidence that innovation thrives in multicultural surroundings, environments. Finland for years has scored very well in innovation rankings, But one thing they have always found out that is our flaw is the lack of internationalization or the lack of multiculturalism. That needs to be addressed. I will just go back if I'm able. I will talk about the concentration of research excellence, frontier innovation, and commercialization. For example, the frontier innovation. This is really dealt by 3 countries: United States, Japan, and Korea. And these are moving that type of innovation. Research excellence. Here you will see an OECD Science, Technology and Industry scoreboard diagram about it. United States dominates the scene. And there is an expenditure, R&D expenditure of more than $400 billion. China is 1/3 smaller than that. In this picture, we can see that it's the non-OECD countries which are growing at the moment. And I'm just trying to highlight Poland. Poland is here. I don't know what is wrong with me, but this is not moving very well. So few countries dominate the science and innovation outputs. It's actually 4 countries. If we look into the science fields, all science fields, it's basically the 4 countries there, and United States is the number 1 in all of them. The second one is UK, followed by China, and then Germany. And they dominate 50 to 70% of high-impact science outputs. If we look into the patenting and innovation, first of all, this is a minor business for universities. UK universities in Europe are leading the scene, and still it represents only 2 to 4% of UK universities' external income. So most of the money will come from contract research, collaborative research, professional education. 10% of European Union universities account for 85% of total licensing income. Only few technology transfer offices have positive net returns, or they break even. So they take more public funding than what they are able to generate. And then there is also a lot of policy focus on spin-offs, but actually the reality is quite different. For example, in university, the annual number of spin-offs in United States is 2. That's the average number. Of course, there is MIT with 22, but still, the figures are not enormous. Europe in general is doing pretty well in the international setting. Here, there are 2.4 spin-offs per $100 million investments, research expenditure, and that's higher than in United States, Canada, or Australia. So when we see all this concentration of science and innovation, what can we possibly do? What can we do in smaller countries and other universities? Here, the role of collaboration, science mobility, and a more broader commercialization concept beyond patents and licenses will help. This slide will show you the premium from scientific collaboration. And what is interesting is that you will see, as on the right-hand side, you have countries, small countries like Iceland, Luxembourg, Belgium and Switzerland, which are very active in scientific collaboration. The scientific collaboration is increasing, it's becoming more persuasive, but it's particularly useful for small countries which are not so big in science production in general. And that you can see in terms of the size of these slots. Poland, again, it's circled with green. The mobility of talent, of highly skilled individuals, of students and researchers is a key driver of innovation. And actually, I selected a wrong slide here. What I wanted to highlight was that US continues to have a central role in scientific networks. It is the source and destination country, the biggest of them. What is interesting is that if you look into the citation impact and you identify those people who leave the country, who return to the country, or who stay the country, you can see big differences. Those who stay tend to produce and focus their publications in a lower prestige journals. So more mobility will push up the countries and the institutions' citation index. And that is why it's important for higher education institutions to really push and encourage their staff to look for international collaborative networks and international publication. After all, this is the way that you will push the institution up in the rankings and also the country up in the rankings. However, I must say that this is also a game. But since it's a game, you know, the citation, who is citing who, how does it go? You can learn to do that. You can push up the figures. But this is not really necessarily the innovation that the country is needing. You need this to show your prestige of the institutions. So the key here would really be looking into commercialization, not only from the focus of patents and licensings, which are important, but also to widen the approach of collaboration. So collaborative research, contract research, faculty consulting, students and faculty mobility, and students' entrepreneurships, these are really the key issues that need to be built up. And building these up, it doesn't usually happen easily. Usually you need at least 15 years to build a very robust commercialization system. So I will now turn into two entrepreneurial and innovative universities which have direct contexts and approaches. Imperial College is relatively old, not compared to the oldest universities, of course. It's among top 10 universities in global rankings. It has the benefits of a central location in London. And it's also a university which is impressive because it can make decisions. What is interesting with this university is that it is essentially multidisciplinary. It has science, tech, engineering, medicine, and business. And it can offer multidisciplinary responses to society and industry challenges. So knowledge exchange is really embedded in their system. It's in their mission. And the mission was already developed in early 20th century. Okay, this is going on strike now. Imperial Innovations is the technology transfer office of Imperial College. It used to be a standard technology transfer office, but it was then changed and it became an independent listed company with Imperial College as a shareholder of 30%. They have a long-term collaborative contracts with the Imperial College for 15 years to offer services, TTO services. But at the same time, it also develops health and tech businesses for several universities, the key universities in United Kingdom. The key strengths of this university is, of course, its reputation and profile. It combines world-class science and technology, and it is a major attraction of international talent. It is nurturing interdisciplinary research, development, and innovation, and it has a culture which has a focus on innovation and knowledge exchange. And the industry links are strong, and so is the funding. It has a very impressive lean and dynamic structure. So like I said, it's a university that can make decisions, and this is a key asset for any higher education institution nowadays. Innovation is really about the speed. It's a question of speed, the ability to be agile. What have been the challenges in this system are that Imperial innovations have been very strong. So it has a lot dominated the collaborative scene with the industry. There's also been a limited culture of supporting entrepreneurship within the campus and lack of visible entrepreneurial community. These have been changing because the Imperial Create Lab was established already in 2011, and Imperial West College is really focusing on translational research. Aalto University is also a multidisciplinary university. It's based on mergers of 3 universities: engineering, design, and business. There was quite a substantial investment by the industry, but also by government, so matched funding by government. What is important in this institution is that they have a very active voluntary students' entrepreneurship drive. There is a Students' Entrepreneurship Association, which has been supported by a startup community in Helsinki. And this is a vibrant startup community. And it has caused a revolution in entrepreneurship activities and attitudes, not only in Aalto University, but nationally. You know, entrepreneurship was not something that Finnish students were looking to do. They were the highest achieving students wanted to work with big multinational companies. Now it has changed. The interesting thing is also now in all universities you have students' entrepreneurship associations. It is penetrating the whole ecosystem. It is changing the mindsets. One of the things that this entrepreneurial association has done is that they imagined a big startup conference, which started a few years back, Slush. There were 400 participants. The last one was in November, with 17,500 participants, with 2,300 startups, which 1,100 investors, 600 journalists throughout the world. So it's the biggest startup conference in Europe, and it's still non-profit, student-driven activity. And now they have also included, or last year already, they have included a science tract. So scientists from different universities and young scientists, older scientists, they will come and they will do their pitching. And the last year's winner has now established his own company with the money that he was able to do. And he got a lot of visibility and also international venture capital. The same thing is happening with the new one, which is looking into new antibiotics to replace the old ones which have lost their power. Another thing is that one of the winners of the startup, because they have a lot of winners in different tracks, was an innovation which is going to help all students, all higher education students and all secondary education students in Finland by free of charge. There will be a digital student card, and this has been imagined by student unions which have established a company which is focusing on digital solutions for students. This is a huge improvement for any country that students take over providing this type of services. The strength of the Aalto University system is that the ecosystem was already there. They are placed in the area, Otaniemi, where Nokia used to be, where there is a state technology center. And there are also long-term university industry links. And then, of course, this student-led entrepreneurship. The Aalto approach has been different because they have not been so interested in intellectual property ownership or startup affiliation. For example, they have an accelerator for applications, App Campus, and they have asked no intellectual property, no revenue share or equity from participants. The focus has been on developing a regional hub for high growth entrepreneurship. But Aalto is, of course, facing challenges, and the challenges, not the least, one of them is the funding cuts that have now been affecting higher education institutions in Finland. So academic staff is very much pushed to produce papers, publications, and there are no clear systems to support them in entrepreneurship and innovation. In this context, I would like to say a few words about the higher education reform in Finland. In 2010, the Ministry of Education made a decision of changing the law, and which came into power in 2011. We have at the moment 14 universities and 24 universities of applied sciences. This is too much for a country, for a population of 5 million. So in the years to come, you will see more mergers, and they are already underway. The universities of applied sciences do not produce doctoral degrees, whereas in universities, in arts and science universities, they offer the full range of degrees. The new law changed the situation in universities. They got a new status. There were two different statuses. Foundations, they became either foundations under the private law or corporations under the public law. All universities needed to open up their governing boards to external members. In the foundations, they have bigger number of that. And also the role and the status of university staff changed. They are no longer fonctionnaires or civil servants, but they are directly employed by the universities. 2015 and 16, there was a review of this reform. And what was established was that universities have become more agile in making decisions. However, the reform had not sufficiently pushed the universities to structural changes. which means more mergers. So that had not really pushed it. The ministry approach has been that they will encourage it, but they will not steer it very strongly. Another thing that came out was that the university industry collaboration had improved. However, within the university community, there was a feeling that there was less collegialism, and that we were not included in the decision making in the same way. When you are thinking about these results, you always need to take into consideration the time when the review was made. It was the time when there were consecutive cuts in higher education institutions, and this has, of course, had an impact on the ideas. So based on these, the international experience, also the MIT reports, we can see that innovative universities, entrepreneurial universities, have 5 key factors. First of all, they do have a culture, and this culture penetrates the whole institutions, departments, the professors. It's not only a high-level commitment, but it's a commitment by the people, understood by the people, by academic staff, administrative staff, and also students. University leadership is very important here to carry the torch, and also to ensure that the university will create a market for innovations. And the market is usually the region surrounding. This is the normal, natural, collaborative basis for any institution in the world, the region. What you can also see that in these entrepreneurial institutions, it is not usually only 1 or 2 departments or units, only one TTO, which is handling things, but there is distributed action, which means that several institutions are active. There is also student-led entrepreneurship, and it's visible. And the ecosystem, there is long-term collaboration with industry. Looking into these institutions, we can see that most institutions who start to develop an innovative entrepreneurial university, they either start with this component number 1, inclusive entrepreneurship community, either by staff or students, or they focus on the technology transfer, licensing, and industry-funded research. In very few institutions, you have a balanced action of both of these important components. And this becomes an issue when the component number 3, the embedding these actions into the university mission, policies, budget allocations, incentives, and curriculum comes into the question. There are tensions which need to be taken into consideration. So for higher education institutions which try to move forward in this area, we can see that these institutions, they have had a visionary leader. There has been an institutional commitment to institutionalize entrepreneurship and innovation. This is not a business of a few professors who are active. It's an institutional business. So there needs to be a strategy which allows multiple activities across the institutions. And this does not mean that there isn't a need for specialization of institutions. Frankly, I think that some of the problems that Polish universities have is that they might have fragmented action. There are institutions which have, for example, 58 specializations. It's no big wonder that with this number of specializations, it's difficult to create the critical mass and be world-class. These institutions should also empower student-led innovation-based entrepreneurship. And when we look into the Aalto example, this is not expensive. The only investment that Aalto has done here is that they allocated a space for students to do their stuff. And they have been very vocal about it and provided support. But there's not really been money, no money. It's also important to continue to strengthen the research capabilities and the industry community engagement. And finally, to set realistic targets. I mean, as I mentioned before, it takes time to do this. If the average number of university spin-offs is 2 in US universities and 22 in MIT, you have to be realistic about it. It takes time. Evaluation and improvement is also important. Measuring of success is something which has not been done in many countries, and the measuring is often based in very narrow indicators. So you can look into the intellectual property rights, you can look into the patents and licenses, but these will capture only part of the action. So that would be, it's important to look into 3 types of indicators. First of all, the input. How is the university changing the culture? Because without changing the culture, you can't really progress. And then there are process indicators. How do you what is the change which is happening in students and staff attitudes and their aspirations? University industry links, and research quality, relevance, and also the reputation, which is important. And then the ecosystem, which looks into the more standard measures. These indicators were identified by about 200 leading experts in entrepreneurship and education, innovation in an MIT-led research. And this took about 3 years to finalize the work. What this impact also, the research also highlighted, was that it is important that institutions which are trying to make the cultural change, they will look into and benchmark with institutions, but look into the early stages of development rather than try to reinvent the MIT the way it's now, because that is a very hard task. Thank you very much for your attention.